Silence surrounds the woman in black like a plague. It opens with the image of three young girls calmly playing with their dolls before stepping up to a window and dropping to their deaths. It's an abruptly cruel scene that establishes a recurring feeling of despair, instantly posing a question to us as the audience. Why? Back in 2012, horror was in a very different phase. Found footage was booming with Paranormal Activity and The Devil Inside. Insidious was fresh and escalating the jump scare arms race. Atmosphere was becoming something of an afterthought, plastered on in post-production if at all, until James Watkins arrives with The Woman in Black. A film that indulged some of those same tricks while also reaching backward into something older and far more unnerving, Gothic horror. This was the first ever film I properly learned to analyse, way back in the class in high school that led me onto making these videos in the first place. And with the channel having turned 7 this year, I feel like it's only right to finally go full circle and talk about this thing again. Is it a good idea? Probably not, but let's talk about it. To understand why The Woman in Black even existed, you need to look at the landscape of the genre back in 2012. Gore was out, found footage was in, jump scares ruled the horror box office, and atmosphere was merely an indulgence. And yet, nestled between sinister, traumatising audiences and filmmakers milking found footage dry, this felt stubborn. A period piece set in Edwardian England, filled with long, drawn-out takes, foggy marshes, and a ghost who spends a lot of her screen time just standing still. Rather than keeping up with the trends, The Woman in Black felt refreshingly simple at the time, opting to slow down and dig into dread rather than feeding into the ongoing adrenaline. That stubbornness comes from its lineage. The Woman in Black marked the return of Hammer Horror, a studio that had once defined Gothic cinema with Christopher Lee's Dracula and Frankenstein. From the late 50s through the 70s, Hammer reshaped the Gothic landscape for mass audiences, injecting colour, blood and sensuality into old myths. By the 2000s, Hammer had vanished into obscurity, remembered mostly as a relic of Britain's horror prime. In 2012, their return wasn't heralded in any grand way, it was just a ghost story draped in grief. By fusing old Gothic traditions with modern expectations of jump scares and pace, The Woman in Black tried to bridge past and present. It simply asked the question of what would happen if horror tried to slow down again amidst all of the chaos and noise of the 2010s. Gothic horror holds a primary focus on absence. The absence of love, stability, or family. Ghosts are a metaphor for pain that refuses to leave, grief calcified into the walls of an old home. Enter Eelmarsh House. Surrounded by fog and cut off by the tide, it looks less like a home and more like a mausoleum. There's no warmth or light, it's just silence. The house feels alive in that stillness, almost inviting Arthur to intrude. We're made to sit in the wrongness of the place. The camera lingers, the backgrounds matter. After a few sightings of the otherness, you find yourself scanning every frame just to try and find her, only to regret it when you do. The trick here isn't the jump scares as present as they might be, it's detection horror. You're searching for something that you don't actually want to see, something that would be a detriment to the well-being of everyone in the plot. The nursery scene captures that perfectly. Creaking floors with toys springing to life and a monkey clapping in the dark. The scene escalates with great tension until it's punctured by the woman dropping from the ceiling. It's effective but also mildly ironic. The build-up shows the film's strength, the stinger highlights the weakness. Still, that slow burn dread makes the payoff hit harder than most of the cheap jolts in the film. The sound design deepens that unease. The house groans and whispers, silence itself becomes an otherness. Marco Beltrami's score adds grief to the fear. Everything is soaked in this underlying sense of mourning. Arthur is often dwarfed by the spaces around him. He's small, fragile, and consumed by grief. And no, that's not a Daniel Radcliffe height joke, however good it might have been. This is the essence of Gothic horror. It's pain left to rot until that pain becomes something monstrous. A large part of the marketing behind this movie was Radcliffe himself. Just months after concluding a decade of wizardry, he turned up in sideburns and a Victorian outfit, trudging through fog. On paper, this sounded ridiculous, but on screen, it just about worked. Arthur Kipps is no hero here. He doesn't fight monsters, and you know what? He doesn't really save the day either. He's a man who has already been hollowed out by loss long before the film has actually begun. His wife is dead, leaving him to raise their child alone, and he walks through life as though halfway gone himself. Radcliffe plays him with a pained restraint, ghostly in his own right. His fear isn't death, his fear is feeling again. That makes him a great Gothic protagonist by nature. He's someone who doesn't enter the haunted house out of bravery, but because he's already living among those ghosts metaphorically. His tragedy is not that he encounters death, it's that he can't move past it, and that resignation is what makes this film's bleak ending feel almost inevitable. Opposite Arthur stands the otherness herself, the antithesis to most modern horror creations. Where a lot of them chase and get pretty active, she doesn't. Her curse is a devastatingly simple one. If you see her, a child will be killed. Her power is certainty, the externalization of weaponized grief. Where Arthur represses his sorrow, she projects hers onto everything else. He walks quietly towards death while she does everything in her power to ensure that it keeps happening. This mirror makes each encounter deeply unsettling. Both of these characters are built on loss, but their responses are stark contrasts. It's silence and repression versus vengeance and eruption. In the end, neither wins. Arthur's act of bravery doesn't set right the past. He dies, and yes, he might be reunited with his wife and son, but the tragedy feels hollow, and the cycle almost promises to repeat itself. The Woman in Black as a concept is grief that has curled into vengeance. An entire village bends under her sorrow and rage, and every child's death becomes a reminder of a pain that was never allowed that time to heal. That inevitably is what makes her terrifying, the condemning nature of every single appearance. It's easy to remember the film for its jump scares. Plenty of people left theatres shrieking, and the marketing definitely leaned into that. But for me, the strongest aspect and the parts where the film does work most is where it slows down and really focuses on Arthur and that pain. When it forces us as the audience to share Arthur's loneliness. The cinematography hangs on doorways, halls and windows. There are thresholds that feel like they should reveal something, but often don't. The tension is in not knowing when they finally will. The patience is what separates the film from the noise of its era, and even when it does cave to conventional means, those earlier stretches of restraint give the louder moments their weight. You would be forgiven for not knowing what lasting impact The Woman in Black had on the genre, because the truth is, it didn't really have anything. It didn't spark the revival of this subgenre, nor did it bring back Hammer horror, and it definitely didn't spawn a franchise. It did admittedly garner a sequel, but that one wasn't very good. This thing just slipped back into the fog, almost as quietly as it and its magical lead had appeared. To many, it didn't matter, and truth be told, I probably only care about it because of the sentimentality I have. It came out at a time where horror was louder, faster, and meaner. It came out at a time where jump scares seemed to be the meta, if you will. But this was a 12A horror that felt mature. It felt like it was dealing with things a little more complex than all of the generic jump scare horror films tended to be doing. I think I appreciated at the time that I felt as though I was being trusted to delve into it in a deeper, more emotional way. But hey, I've grown up, and I don't really know if I stand by that by now. It's going to be impossible for me to tell, just purely, again, because of the sentimentality I have for this thing. A decade later, it's been largely forgotten. It's a story about grief, absence, and the monsters that absence leaves behind. And yeah, it might become a little generic and throw in a few ridiculous jump scares here or there, but come on, it was 2012. What horror film wasn't?